So, good morning everyone. I am Wendell Abarquez of CTU Barili Campus, taking a Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English. And for this video, we will be talking about subject-verb agreement as well as its rules. So, first, before we proceed with its rules, let's just talk about what is a subject-verb agreement. So, subject-verb agreement is a relationship between our subject in a sentence and its verb. So their relationship is very important for us to be grammatically and technically correct when we write or when we speak. So it is very important in grammar. So subject-verb agreement usually is one of the basic topics that we need to tackle when we study about grammar. So let's talk about its rules. Without further ado, here are the 10 rules in subject-verb agreement. And the first rule states that a verb agrees in its subject in terms of number or in numbers. So singular subjects take singular verbs. For example, the car stays in the garage. In this sentence, the car is our subject, which is in singular form. Thus, we use the singular form of the verb, which is stays. Next, we have the flower smells good. So here in this sentence, our subject is the flower, which is also in singular form. Thus, we use the verb smells, which is in singular form also. So let us remember that there is an old saying that states opposite do attracts or opposite attracts. And it means that, or in relation with this rule, the rule in singular or singular and plural form of the verb is only the opposite of the rule in singular and plural form of our nouns or the subjects. So now let us move on with our second rule in the subject-verb agreement. And our second rule states that the number of the subject, or as what we call as the singular or the plural form, is not changed by the words that come between our subject and the verb. So for example, one of the eggs is broken. So our subject here is one and the verb is, which are both in singular form. So some of you might say or might think that our subject here is the eggs, but the eggs or of the eggs is actually our prepositional phrase, and it comes after our subject, which is one. And again, it does not change the number of our subject. So our subject is one, and still it is in singular form. Thus, we use also the singular form of the verb. The third rule of the subject-verb agreement states that some subjects always take a singular verb, though or even though the meaning may seem plural. So some of these subjects are like each, one, anybody, somebody, or someone, and many more as what you can see on your screens. And for instance, for example, we have someone in the game was hurt. So you will use was and not where. Then, neither of the men is working. You will use the singular form of the verb is and not are. Fourth rule states that some words may be singular or plural in form, depending upon on how we use them in the sentence. So these words are some, any, all, and most. So for example, most of the news is good. Here, we use the word most as in singular form. Next, we have most of the flowers were yellow. Here, our most or the most is in plural form. Next, we have all of the pizza was gone. So here, we use the word all as in singular form. Next, we have all of the children were late. So here, the word all is now in plural form. Let's move on with our fifth rule in subject-verb agreement. And it states that subjects that are joined by the word and are plural. Thus, it takes also a plural form of the verb. But those subjects joined by the word or nor use or will use a subject depending upon on the form of the last subject. So if the last subject following the word or nor is in plural form, so the verb of the sentence will be in plural form also. But if the last subject following the word nor or is in singular form, so the form of the verb in the sentence will be in singular form also. So to make this clearer, let's have these examples. Bob and George are leaving. So in this sentence, our subjects, which are Bob and George, are joined by the word and. So it takes a plural form of the verb, which is are. So next we have neither Bob nor George is leaving. Now we are using the word nor. So our last subject following the word nor is George, which is in singular form. So we will be using singular form of the verb also, which is. So lastly, we have neither Bob nor his friends are leaving. In this case, we are using the same word, which is nor, with our to connect our subjects. But here, the subjects or the subject following the word nor is already in plural form. So his friends. Thus, we use the plural form of the verb, which is are. The sixth rule of the subject-verb agreement states that the words there and here are never subjects. So in the sentence, or for those sentences that begin with these words, the subjects usually found later on in the sentence. So for example, there were 5 books on the shelf. So our verb where agrees on the subject books and not on the word there. Lastly, we have here is the report you wanted. So is as our verb agrees with our subject report and not on the word here. Next, we have the 7th rule of the subject-verb agreement, and it states that collective nouns may be in singular or plural form depending on their use in the sentence. So for those who did not know yet, collective noun is a word or is a noun that is used to name a whole group. So some of these collective nouns are United States, orchestra, team, class, flock, and many more. It's what you can see on your screen. So to let you understand more, here are the examples. So first sentence. The orchestra is playing a hit song. So the collective noun orchestra here is used as a singular form of a subject. Thus, it takes a singular form of the verb, which is. So next, the orchestra were asked to give their musical background. So here, the collective noun orchestra is used as a separate individuals. So this means that the orchestra now is in plural form of the subject. Thus, it takes a plural form of the verb also, which is where. We have the 8th rule of the subject-verb agreement, and it states that expressions of time, money, measurement, and weight are usually singular in form if the amount is considered as 1 unit. So, for example, $5 is too much to ask. We use the verb is and not are. So, another example, we have 10 days is nearly or not nearly enough time. We use is and not are. But for some instances, these terms were used in a plural sense. For example, we have 30 minutes to count down, or there are 30 minutes to count down. Here, 30 minutes, the manner of time is used in plural form. So what is really important here is that we do understand how we use the subject or how the subject was being used in the sentence for us also to know the form of the verb that we will be applying. And now we are heading with our second to the last rule of the subject-verb agreement, our 9th rule, which states that some nouns, while plural in form, are actually singular in meaning. And these nouns or words are what we call as special nouns or special words. And these special nouns usually or must take a singular form of a verb. So, some examples of these special nouns or special words are mathematics, physics, missiles, and gymnastics, etc. as what you can see on your screens. So, for examples, we have mathematics is an easy subject for some people. And next, we have physics is taught by Professor Baldwin. So in those sub-sentences, we use special nouns as our subject. Thus, we use also the singular form of the verb. So now we are down to our last rule in the subject-verb agreement, and it states that doesn't and don't must agree on its subject or on the subject of the sentence. So use doesn't after he, she, or it. For example, doesn't he know how to sail? So use doesn't here to refer our subject, which is singular, he. So next we have they don't make movies like that anymore. So they is plural as our subject, and so we use the word don't to refer it. And that ends our video tutorial for today, and I really hope that you've learned something out from this video. In subject verb agreement, what we must prioritize or what we must remember is to understand the sentence itself, especially the subject, for us to know what is the proper verb that we may use. So use critical thinking. So that's it. Thank you and God bless.